Okay, greeting to all in ASEAN. It is really a pleasure to have all of you join us in this finale of the live chat discussion. So, Bangkok weather, has been raining, and in fact more rain, and flood is actually expected. In fact, in later part of the August or even September, and there is this whole conversation about monsoon coming. And greeting to all our distinguished speakers that have joined us for today. And we have from Indonesia, Mr. Edi Widono. He is actually the founder and chairman of PGCI. And we have, and he's from Indonesia. And from Myanmar, we have Ms. Yu Hin Yen, Head of Operation Proximity Design, Myanmar. And followed on, we have Singapore, Mr. Tong Seong Hwa, Energy Market Corporation, is the CEO. And he also represents ASEAN CIO Association. He is, in fact, our counselors that would also be leading on this particular conversation with us. Together, also, we have Thailand, Mr. Chittada Sakpunku, Thailand Greenhouse Gas Management Organization. He's the Director, IT and Corporate Communication Office. So we have a very good mix of countries joining us. Ladies, gentlemen, Ongsin is my name, and I'm one of the founding members of ASEAN CIO Association, responsible for Global Relationship Alliance, events, and activities. Today, we are very privileged to also have our President, Kun Chaijalan Atipet, joining us for this session. And together with him, his Vice President from the South Zone, Dr. Hammam Raisa. He's also the Chairman for BPPT. So firstly, we just run through a very quick logistic that this is a public live chat. I'd like to highlight that your name and your photos, voice may be captured. So with PDPA, we would also like to emphasize that ASEAN CIO do not send out or sell your contact details when you do the registration with us. And should you have somebody to register on behalf of you, we would also have those information. And subsequently, if you are receiving newsletters from us and you do not wish to continue, please drop us an email so that we can delete the contact permanently. Secondly, this session allows you to ask a question or post a question on the group chat column. So for those who are listening in for the first time, allow me to introduce ASEAN CIO Association. A decade ago, a group of CIOs gathered from state enterprise, government agencies, large corporate, with a vision to help and support each other across ASEAN, possibly, from the angle of sharing, technical issues or deployment issues, as in not just purely dependent on the vendors. So supporting this great vision, a non-profit organization, it is led by our current president, Kun Chaijalan Atipet, and of course with him, he has also Dr. Hammam Raisa from BPPT. He is the chairman of BPPT, and of course he has also the other vice president who runs the cybersecurity company, Dr. Komen, supporting him. So all personnel in ASEAN CIO Association are volunteers, and that do not stop us from forming strong alliances across the region. With the COVID situation not making much of a progress, it is also likely that most of our offline events are likely to postpone. And mainly the 8th forum that we had planned in Vietnam for 2 days is going to be postponed. And our co-host is actually Vinasa, Vietnam Information Network and Software Association. The theme for this year was planned for a digital nation moving beyond smartness, demand sustainability, and co-creation. So with the climate change issue, we have an urgent request to establish a drill and also a simulation for flood amongst Thailand and also CLMV in Cambodia, Laos, Myanmar, Vietnam. Okay, so this is actually on a urgent discussion right now where we are working out to support this whole conversation of the flood drill. And also, this is our last live chat as we were able to work out new model of engagement in following up for the past 13 live chat that we had since 3 months ago. And the live chat has been our weekly meet online, and it has also given us a lot of input on how much the industry needed to see action than just talk. And that's also the reason that now we channel a lot of the effort back into the live chat one and relook into what we have to do to support the ASEAN requirement. So live chat digital channel will then also be moving forward into the new line of communication. Likely, we are going to be working on what we call the fire chat, where we very much focus onto the individual work that are contributing to the change and the transformation across the region. So we will still focus on business consulting, coaching, cybersecurity, CP and urbanization, digital transformation, digital water, digital fund. We had a lot of inquiry on this when we launched the conversation 2 weeks ago. And green and sustainability, a hot subject where a lot of people wanted to know what can they do, how can they do, why they need to do. And of course, last but not least, the women and youth channel. Do expect that we will be inviting 2 women across ASEAN to be leading together with us in terms of the women conversation in the digital world. So ASEAN CIO Association, the ASEAN Digital Green Initiatives, transform to sustain. So blockchain and AI for climate efficiency to manage carbon footprint. There is nothing magical, but we have a lot of work to do. So as ASEAN CIO Association, we are working with like-minded people to change the way we do things today to create a final future. So we are supporting the shift to regenerative and climate smart world. So we have just start diving into climate strategy, underline our commitment to one of the 10 initiatives that we have crafted in our role and function as an organization to launch aligning the sustainable development goal for future affordable and clean energy on climate action. So in thinking ahead and taking action now towards what we call the low carbon future, there's a long way to go, all right? And there are already a lot of organization on this subject, and we will be introducing the ASEAN Green Communities, focusing on pilot of the 50 top emitters on each country with a 9-month program. And we aspire to drive positive change in society and the environment for future generations. So obviously, when we do that, we'll be touching on subjects like climate governance, climate strategy, climate risk, climate technology. There's a whole lot of work that we need every country to work together. So jumping in on the conversation, just to do a very quick recap for attendees that probably familiar or not familiar yet about the Paris Agreement. 190 or 195 nations met in Paris in 2015, and they reached that landmark agreement to strengthen the global climate effort. So this Paris Agreement basically commit countries to undertake a nationally determined contribution. I mean, they call it NDC, all right, as a form of measurement, right, to establish this whole mechanism to hold the country accountable and to strengthen the ambition in the years ahead. Okay. Interestingly, in 2019, November 4th, United States formally initiated its withdrawal from the agreement by President Donald Trump. But we never know, maybe with the new incoming president, he or she may rejoin the whole conversation again. And because of this whole Paris Agreement is to apply post-2020, the first formal stock take under the agreement will not take place until 2023. So imagine right now till 2023, what happened. So the Paris Agreement, they are talking about the 2-degree goal, all right, while urging effort, to limit the increase to 1.5 degrees Celsius. Okay, so there is a whole lot of information that you can also search and find where is this whole conversation. The world's largest emitter failed to present substantive plan for greater emission reduction, but 65 countries expressed their intention to enhance their NDC. Okay, and allow me to, also take a quick pause on the Paris Agreement, because there's a lot of work that are being communicated, challenged, discussed on the subject, and as far as ASEAN CIO is concerned, we need to turn to reality in ASEAN. And we are living right now in a very much different world where we are very much more connected. A lot of information can be shared, where technology can play a very important role in terms of what we can actually do. So the willing heart is very important to, at least to begin with. We need to look into how we can design the market, the policies, the financial system, the public services, and so on and so forth, to bring humanity on to safety. Moving forward, I very much, I'm very excited, as in, like, I would like to bring on the plenary speakers, where each have their unique experience in today's subject. And in all ways, each have contributed respectively in their country, and even supported the region or even globally. So from Brunei, may I invite Ms. Dina Yaya. She is actually the head of Brunei Climate Change Secretariat, and she runs a huge function in the conversation on climate governance, championed by councils and ministers. And she also runs different roles as far as the Brunei Climate Change Secretariat. They are also the government authority mandating to develop, implement, monitor, and also evaluate national climate policies. Yesterday, quick rehearsal, she mentioned about there is a call for urgency to work on the new policies. And may I invite Dina Yaya to join us for the introduction. Do tell us about, not just yourself, but also your work involving in this whole green conversation. Dina?
Okay. Hi, thanks, Pim. Thanks for the kind introduction. So I'm Dina. I'm from the Brunei Climate Change Secretariat. It's a small secretariat, but it has a huge function, as mentioned earlier on. So we are the secretariat to the Brunei Climate Change governance, which is championed at the council level. So it's in Brunei, we have 4 ministers championing climate change at a very high level. So recently, this council has just launched Brunei's very first Brunei National Climate Change Policy. So this is the very first for it. And the role of the Secretariat was really to coordinate a whole of nation approach. So we brought together all the relevant key stakeholders to draft the policy. And now that it is launched, and we continue to work with them to ensure that we'll be able to operationalize it. So yeah, so in a nutshell, this thing has just started. So it's a big step for Brunei now that it has launched. So we have still a lot of work to do. Yeah.
All right. Thank you for the introduction. And right now, I'd like to invite from Indonesia, may I invite Pak Edi. He is a very renowned person in the Indonesian power sector, and he has almost 2 decades of experience running this particular function. And he's also a member of Indonesia Engineering Association. So his credential is very long, and I'm going to invite him to do a introduction and also his involvement of this whole green, green effort for Indonesia. Eddie?
Thank you. Hi, everybody. I'm Eddie Widiono. I was CEO of PLN, the Electricity Utility of Indonesia, from 2001 to 2008. And then I joined the National Energy Board 2009 to 2014. And then now 2015, I create the Smart Grid Indonesia initiatives with the objective to speed up the technology transformation and energy transition in Indonesia. I'm very glad to be invited and speak in this very honorable event. And thank you for having me here. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Pak Edi. Thank you for joining us. And in fact, to steal his time, it's hard to get him actually. So from Myanmar, may I invite Hin, Head of Operation, Proximity Design. So she has a very interesting background. A statistician, turned small farmer enthusiast, and then working in conservation, getting familiar with the statistical genetic in the US, and then she returned to Myanmar. And right now, she has been basically spending a long time in the work, and very passionate about application of data and technology, and of course, entrepreneurship for the rural development. Nin, maybe you'd like to bring yourself on the screen and introduce to the rest of the speakers. To the rest of the audience. Yes.
Yes, thank you very much for the introduction, and I'm really excited and honored to participate in this live chat on the ASEAN Green Initiative. So, as the moderator already mentioned, my name is Kyun Ninye, and I'm from Myanmar, and I'm heading up the nationwide operations in an organization called Proximity Designs. It's a social enterprise working with smallholder farmers, providing products and services that increase their incomes and to be more climate resilient as well. We work in the 3 main areas: farm technology, agronomy, advice, and farm finance. So, if anything in the last few years had taught us from the unpredictable weathers in the ASEAN regions all the way to the bushfires in Australia, is that everyone really needs to contribute to mitigate the climate change everywhere. So in my line of work, I engage with vulnerable rural communities and those in the agriculture sector, which are often severely affected by the climate change. So for Myanmar, 70% of Myanmar's populations are farmers, and our GDP relies on agriculture. So the impact of the climate change on these groups has significant consequences, not for the community themselves, but also the socio-economic development of the country. At the same time, agriculture is a big contributor for climate change. It's the leading cause for CO2 and greenhouse gas emission, and for deforestation and for soil erosion. For Myanmar, greenhouse gas emission from the agriculture sector is way more than the emission from the industrial sectors as well. So for us, the main group and areas affected by the climate change also have places for solutions as well. So Myanmar national climate change strategies and master plans have a heavier focus and emphasis on resilient rural communities and climate smart agriculture practices as well. So for our organizations, we've been working very closely with the Ministry of Agriculture, Livestock and Irrigation in implementing the climate smart agricultural strategies as well. And in this channel, I'm really excited, as I mentioned, I'm really excited to learn more because for Myanmar, we are still in the beginning stage for the technology advancement for blockchain and AI, and there's a lot that we need to learn from the regions as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Nin. And from Singapore, I'd like to invite Mr. Toh Seong Hwa. He's basically a change catalyst. In fact, he has a good brief of experience in technology, and today are being very familiar with technology and heading a very vital organization in Singapore, Energy Market Corporation, and he basically leads a very high-performing team with first-hand market operator expertise, envisioning transformative growth and charting actionable roadmap for successful, sustainable energy market. It's very exciting to have him. And Seong Hwa, the screen is yours. Please do an introduction.
Hi, thanks Hong Sin for a very kind introduction, and good day, good afternoon, good night, or good evening to everyone, depending on your location. Really glad to be here at this time to participate in this plenary. My name is Seong Hwa. I'm from Singapore, and I'm the CEO for the energy market company in Singapore. And what we do is we operate the wholesale electricity market in Singapore. Energy and climate change is quite closely linked, or at least Singapore is concerned, because the power sector or the energy sector is a very significant emitter of greenhouse gases, right? And so there is a very huge conversation in Singapore, at least, on how can we do better. From where we sit, or from where I sit, there is now a very growing consciousness about contributing to positive environmental impact. And there is substantially now increasing demand, at least from energy perspective, of people looking for green energy, right, or green electrons. Whereas in the past, Singapore produced power, 95% of it from natural gas. And we have very limited sources of renewable energy. But nevertheless, the demand for green energy in Singapore is there. And we only have solar panel at our disposal. And for EMC's concern, we have created a market for renewable energy certificates where companies or corporations in Singapore, such as SIA or 3M, can purchase sort of green energy from our market. And the RECs supply predominantly can come from Singapore or from the region. So, for example, from Thailand. So it's now a conversation where ASEAN as a whole, whether can we do more collectively in this area, right? I think that's the gist of the conversation for this afternoon. Over to you, Hong Sin.
Okay. Thank you very much, Seong Hwa, and I really appreciate what you have mentioned. Can we all in ASEAN do something collectively to work towards that green possibility? So calling on the gentleman who is running the big conversation in Thailand Greenhouse Gas Organization, Mr. Jeseda Sakuku is the director of IT and Corporate Communication. He graduated from Chulalongkorn, and he has also very good years of experience working with the Ministry of Energy, Thailand, before joining TGO. So, Khun Jeseda, the screen is yours. So please do an introduction and your involvement of with TGO or in the green community.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. This is my pleasure to have the opportunity to talk with the live chat. I am Jesda Sakunku, the Director of the IT and Corporate Communication from TGO. The TGO agency driving greenhouse gas mitigation in Thailand towards sustainable carbon economy. We also solo tool and also the mechanism for based on voluntary program for the carbon trading and carbon offsetting program, and also we also help the level and community level their plan for mitigation action in corresponding to their context, and we also have the building to of help for the action plan, and we have the several promote and support implement relating to climate change. And thank
Well, Kun Jesada there are some part of your conversation get amputated, so got cut off. So we didn't really hear the last part. So if that is okay for you to just repeat the last part again.
Okay. Okay. Sorry, I have the connection problem from my side. In TGO, we have the several program for support and action based on voluntary program, such as greenhouse gas mechanism and offsetting program, and also we level and mitigation action, and also we
Kun Jesada, the communication got hang again. Is it okay that you try to recheck in again? Like you log out and then you log in again. So maybe while waiting for Kun Jesada to rejoin us back onto the conversation, more or less we have actually all the speakers actually do that very quick introduction and their work involvement. And to kickstart with, since Seongwa mentioned about this whole conversation on ASEAN collectively working on things together, I very much would like to get on to the key conversation on how how each of your country are actually tackling issues on carbon emission. Is it something, because Jeseda mentioned about Thailand is voluntary. What about the rest of the country? Is it voluntary? Is it compulsory? So what exactly is your country exercising? So maybe we can go by like Brunei again, like Dina. Like the question is, how is your country tackling issues on carbon emission as well? Is it on a voluntary or it is an enforcement by the government? Dina?
Okay. Hi, thanks, Pim, once again. So for Brunei, we are very, very committed in terms of reducing our greenhouse gas emission as a country. As I mentioned in my introduction, we have just recently launched our first national climate change policy. It was just last Saturday. So the aim of this policy is to pave low carbon and climate resilient pathways for Brunei moving forward to achieve overall sustainability. So it's a huge step for Brunei because we are predominantly an oil and gas country. So we anticipate that as we try to diversify moving forward, that our greenhouse gas emission will double by 2035. So for us, it is very important that we advance in a low carbon transition. So this is our main agenda. So for Brunei, it's very important that we do this for our own country. So in our policy, we have identified 10 core strategies in the policy, which 7 out of these 10 strategies directly related to reducing greenhouse gas emissions. So the 7s are, we look at industrial emissions. So this is venting and flaring because we're in an oil and gas economy. Secondly, we look at forest cover, trying to see how we can plant new trees. We also look at electric vehicles. We actually put a very ambitious target for our electric vehicles, which is about 60% out of our total share by 2035. We've also identified renewable energy as one of the strategies to reduce greenhouse gas emission, and we are talking about at least 30% renewable energy from the total energy mix. The next one is power management. So our power is mainly fueled by natural gas, so it's pretty clean compared to other fossil. But again, we acknowledge that there's still opportunity. So we identify that perhaps we can make our generation more efficient, as well as our demand side more efficient, so that we can reduce not just energy consumption, but also greenhouse gas emission at the same time. And we've also identified waste management. So we would like to also tackle methane emission from waste. And the last one, which is very interesting, is carbon pricing. So we've identified carbon pricing to be one of the tools that would bring down our greenhouse gas emission in the next 5 years. So when we look at this 7 strategies, it could bring Brunei, it has the potential of bringing Brunei's greenhouse gas emission down to about 50%, more than 50% by 2035. So it's a huge step, and the opportunities for low carbon transition is there. So we're hoping that this climate policy will help us to path that pathway that we are hoping for. Besides this as well, not just mitigation, but because Brunei is very small and our size and our location, we are also quite vulnerable to the climate impact. So we've also identified climate resilience and adaptation to be a key part of that policy. So yeah, so I guess we are very, very much guided now by the policy, and we're just hoping that the next step would be on how we are going to operationalize the policy. So this is a very clear direction from the government side. It's a very clear indication and also signal that Brunei is very, very committed in terms of reducing our greenhouse gas emission at a very national level. Yeah.
Okay, interesting, Dina. You mentioned about like all this conversation being like top down. Is it like an enforcement, or is still on voluntary?
Well, it's a little bit of both, because when we drafted the policy, we actually involved about 39 key stakeholders. So these key stakeholders are mainly from the oil and gas sector. There's also non-oil and gas sector involved, transportation sector. So we brought everybody, especially the key emitters, together to draft the policy. So that's a bit of bottom-up approach we have there. And we ensured that our process was as open and as transparent as possible, because we know that at the end of the day, these are the key holders that we need their buy-in from. That would, these are the key stakeholders that will be implementing the policy. So we brought them in the process from day one to ensure that we could have effective implementation at the end of the day. So to answer your question, it's not really, whether in enforcement or voluntary, but it's a little bit of both. And I think carbon pricing is very, very interesting, because it's one of the most, we've identified it's one of the most effective way of reducing greenhouse gas emission, but it's also the most challenging strategy, because we have to really think it through, and we have to know which model would fit Brunei national circumstance. Yes, so I hope I answer your question in that sense.
Yes, definitely. I mean, it's just enlightening to know that while you humbly mentioned about a small country, it sounds like you have done a lot of work. That would also look into like the rest of the bigger countries in size, putting them on the toes as well on what they actually has to do or plan to do. Without further ado, I very much like to hear from Indonesia. Pak Edi, you are the gurus in the conversation. So, definitely we need to hear from you in terms of what Indonesia is doing by the conversation of tackling issues on carbon emission. Pak Edi, the screen is yours.
Well, thank you very much. As you might know now that my background is on energy sector, but I will try to explain what my country has done within the framework of curbing the carbon monoxide and greenhouse gas emission in order to achieve a 1.5 degrees Celsius maximum increase in environment temperature. Actually, involvement started with the Kyoto Protocol a few years back, which I believe has been put at end by 2010, and then come the transition period, and now since 2016, after COP21, my country has pledged the national NDCs and target and explain it, and even going further, ratifying the COP21 agreement into the law number 16 2016 in Indonesia. A lot of things has been done since then. In 2010, for instance, we pledged to reduce emission by 26% in this year, 2020, and we are focusing at the time to the problem, serious problem that's been facing by Indonesia, which is forest fire. Yeah, and many regulation and many institution has been involved in curbing this situation, and currently even we already do some lawsuit to those who's responsible for the forest fire, and at least 4 companies has been indicted, and they are now facing severe punishment for that. So our nationally determined contribution consists of several sectors: land use sector, energy sector, waste management sector, and it also comprises of mitigation, adaptation, and then the strategy to achieve the goal. There are 4 pillars of strategy which currently the government employed. Number 1 is employing a landscape approach. Number 2, highlighting existing best practices. Number 3, mainstreaming climate agenda into development planning. And then number 4, promoting climate resilience in food, water, and energy. Then I'll try to look into my own sector, the energy sector, in which the government has stated that in energy sector, by government regulation number 79, National Energy Policy, we set up an ambition to transform by 2025 and by 2050 a new and renewable energy penetration of at least 23% in 2025 and at least 31% in 2050. And then oil consumption should be less than 25% in 2025 and less than 20% in 2050. Also a set up goal for coal and as well as for gas. And with that situation, currently there was a period within 2017 to 2019 that the government has concentrated on two out of three part of the trilemma, energy trilemma, which consists of sustainability, affordability, and then security. And at the time, the government focused on affordability, and therefore we try to control the price of energy to match the affordability of people, and in many cases by introducing subsidy. So on affordability and then on sustainability, it came later. We try to now rebuild the interest in renewables by within next couple of months. We will have a new presidential regulation which reenact the feed-in tariff, which unfortunately has been put in freeze in 2017, has now been reinstated. And we hope that by that time we will able to push the development on the energy sector, renewable energy sector, to meet the goals. The challenge that faced by energy sector currently is very high. We face the decarbonization, digitalization, decentralization, demand response, and disruption situation. Yeah. In addition to that, we are facing the economic downturn out of the post-COVID-19, and also because of the war. And the balancing energy trilemma has been done with the aim to maintain all the three: accessibility, security, and affordability. And we know that there are potential of rising energy demand even though after the post-COVID-19. We are looking for the possibility of decoupling the GDP growth and demand growth. We are actively now pursuing a bigger role of electricity as a final energy means. We also face a problem of forecast and planning. Decentralized planning has been adopted efficiently, but we need also decentralized planning for effective growth. In human resource, we are facing a promise of demographic growth, demographic bonus, but also a challenge of new skills and disappearing jobs, and therefore retraining as well as preparation for a new kind of job is also very imminent. And last but not least, with digitalization, we are facing a challenge on cybersecurity. It's a new yet a very crucial, important frontier that Indonesia should also learn to acquire. I think that is the current situation that we are facing. I'm glad to report to you now that currently decarbonization or renewable energy is becoming the hype of the countries nowadays. PLN, the state electricity utility, has announced that one of their first four vision are a green transformation, which give quite a boost to our effort to go green. And with that, lately PLN also mentioning that they would like to start the introduction of renewable energy certificate, REC, with the aim to support the customers which require such a certification for their operations. So REC will be internationally acknowledged, and then it can be traded internationally. guess that's, before I go further into artificial intelligence and blockchain, maybe that's for the time being. Thank you.
It's again very eye-opening to see such a big country is taking such a big effort to actually get people to work. And very interestingly, is that I'm hearing conversation that is that maybe many never really think about, the cybersecurity conversation. And here, you are taking the lead to look into this whole concern. And of course, the big effort on the green focus for the whole entire Indonesia. We're going to come back to you with a couple more questions. Then may I invite Nin from Myanmar to share on this whole conversation in terms of like how Myanmar is actually tackling the issues on carbon emissions. Nin, please.
Yes. So Myanmar is highly vulnerable to climate change, and according to the Global Climate Risk Index, Myanmar is actually one of the most vulnerable, ranking even 2 in the world in terms of the extreme weather events. So every monsoon, I get to hear more and more personal stories of how a certain heavy rainfall flooded and destroyed the paddy fields and the homes, and then the dry season comes and we experience extreme heat for longer periods. And most worryingly, we experience water shortage, not only for the crops, but also for the people. And our sea level is also rising every year, displacing local communities and impacting agriculture and economic activities as well. And last year, Myanmar farmers were quite hit badly because of climate change. We had record low rainfall, and many farmers had 2 consecutive seasons with failed crops. And then the COVID-19 pandemic hit, and the rainfall in this coming monsoon, the current season, is even lower than last year. So vulnerable farming communities, COVID-19 is just another crisis on top of the climate change. And as a country, we are very cognizant of the impact of climate change on a society. Myanmar was hit by the cyclone Nuggets 12 years ago, and it was really devastating. We witnessed the deaths of 140,000 people and the displacements of over 2 million people. So it's still fresh in everyone's mind about how devastating a climate change impact could be. A silver lining from that, since our recovery from the cyclone Nuggets, is that it made us and the whole country be more aware of climate-related hazards. So it was really a wake-up call. So since then, the government and the local communities are trying to be more resilient toward climate-related disasters and implemented more preventative measures even before the Paris Agreement. We have come a long way, but that's not enough yet. So since the Paris Agreement, the Myanmar government has also come up with a number of important policies, national environment policy, climate change strategy, and the plan and sustainable development master plans, with again really having the resilient society at the core. So these policies really set out with the ambition to transform Myanmar into a climate resilient, low carbon society that is sustainable, prosperous, and inclusive. In addition to the focus in the agriculture, fishery, and livestock sectors, these policies have emphasis on 5 other important industries: natural resource management, energy transport and industrial systems, towns and cities, disaster risk and impacts, health impacts, and then education, awareness, and technological system as well. So as I mentioned before, my organization has been working very closely with the Ministry of Agriculture regarding the climate resilient strategy as well. So for all our products and services approximately, we touch upon like everything, all the products really touch upon the climate resilience and mitigation. So we provide tailored agronomy advice to help overcome the yield gap and manage farmers' pest and disease and climate risk. We provide farm technologies that make farmers more climate resilient and aware. We promote water saving practices through our micro irrigation technology, and then soil conservation and nutrient management practices through the soil testing service. Agriculture emits about 18% of greenhouse gas in Myanmar, and a trend that is really increasing with more agricultural land use and fertilizer usage as well. And we also provide different loan sizes to farmers to finance not only for their short-term crop seasons, but also for long-term investments they need to make for their land so that they could be more climate resilient in the future as well. We are also redesigning new services to promote more of the weather awareness and climate impact at the micro regional level. Another age-old practice that we are trying to change in Myanmar is the fuel burning practice after harvest. When you fly in an airplane in Myanmar during the harvest season, all you can see is burning and smoke. And sometimes, like when I even fly in, I could immediately tell if we cross the border from Thailand because there's the scenery changed completely. So we are now, together with the ministry, we're designing a solution to decompose the straw quickly so that the farmers don't need to ban unnecessarily and emit methane into the atmosphere. And from the government, apart from the agriculture side, from the other industries, Myanmar has plans to make hydropower the sole electricity source by 2030, while adding another forms of renewable energy such as solar and biomass to the overall energy mix by 2030 as well. And the government has committed over also $500 million US in the rehabilitation and the reforestation program over the next decade to invest in the nature-based solutions such as coastal mangrove forests that can not only help mitigate climate change by storing a huge amount of carbon dioxide, but while also building natural barriers to reduce the impact of the cyclone and storm surges. And from the private sector as well, there's been a lot of efforts in promoting green business and SMEs, and we have had a lot of incubators and startups really focusing on green space as well. So one commitment that the Myanmar government has made very loud and clear in all those policies, and especially in the national environment policy, is that every person and citizen living in Myanmar has the right to access the clean and healthy environment, and also the duty to protect the environment as well. So regarding your question, regarding this carbon emission, it's not really compulsory, but everyone seems to have more of a commitment, especially learning the lessons, reflecting the lessons learned from the cycle nuggets as well. And personally as well, I'm really inspired and motivated by such commitment from the government.
Ming, are you a NGO, or are you like a promoter for Greenpeace?
Well, my organization, as I mentioned, my organization is a social enterprise and it's a non-profit working together with the government in the climate resilience strategies as well. So there's a lot of overlap between the what we do and the national strategies in terms of climate change.
Okay, and anyway, it's also very encouraging to learn that Myanmar is also putting effort in terms of looking into like hydropower beyond the conversation of oil, or you are paying so much attention in terms of agriculture. Well, I just have to say that it's very encouraging, and also to have young people like you to care about Myanmar and also beyond the shore. We definitely have a lot to learn with the work that you're doing. And moving on, I very much would like to invite Seonghwa to share, in terms of like the country tackling carbon emission. And of course, he who is heading the EMC function, I believe he has also a lot to work on with many other rest of the agencies. Seonghwa?
Hi, Hong Xin, thank you. So how would climate change affect Singapore? I recall last year, 2019, in the National Day rally, our Prime Minister Lee, he touched on this subject, and he showed a map of Singapore impacted by rising sea level. So, and I live quite close to the coast, and it's not thrilling to see that from where I'm talking to you today, it could be submerged under the sea. So I need to find a way to make my home float. But jokes aside, the Prime Minister did say that the impact of rising sea level would cost Singapore $100 billion to work on some kind of defense over, I think, 100 years. And in fact, in this year's Singapore budget, the Deputy Prime Minister has prepared a budget that set aside an initial injection of $5 billion fund into this plan. So Singapore is just not affected by rising sea level. We could also be affected by our water security. Whereas in a very extreme climate scenario, we could be experiencing long period of dry spell or a very wet spell. So that could affect our water security, where we are small, as a small country, we do not have large water catchment areas, for example. Other areas that could affect us is the urban heat island effect, where Singapore, in a very concrete setting, is ideal for trapping heat, right? So as an island, it's hotter than compared to other countries which is more forested in nature. So the climate issue is a real issue that's confronting us in Singapore. And the government agencies have gone about tackling it in many different sectors. Energy as a large emitter of greenhouse gas in Singapore is obviously a focus sector in Singapore, where the government has sort of passed a energy conservation act, right? Energy Conservation Act, where organizations with energy demand of more than 15 gigawatt hour, or translate to roughly 54 terajoules, each year would have to appoint an energy manager, and they have to monitor and report usage of energy and greenhouse gas emission to the authority, and they have to submit plans for energy efficiency improvements, right? So in other areas such as the building sector, the Building Control Authority in Singapore also require any buildings with a gross floor area of more than 15,000 meters square to achieve a minimum green mark standard, which is a green standard over here in Singapore for buildings, when they install or replace a new, say, a chiller system. And there will be audits, right, going forward for them as well. There are also fundings, co-fundings or co-payment schemes for buildings if they want to retrofit their building to be more energy efficient going forward. In the transport sector, the Land Transport Authority in Singapore has an ambitious target that by, 2040, 9 in 10 peak period journeys will be made via walk, cycle, ride modes, right? So you can see the bicycle behind me, and that's my daily commute to office. I cycle to office every day, 40-kilometer round trip. So I'm contributing to this cause. In terms of waste and water area, there are works in Singapore looking at how to reduce methane from wastewater, as well as reducing energy usage from our desalination plant in Singapore. Hong Xun asked, is it top down, bottom up? Is it a government regulated space in this area? In Singapore, the carbon pricing in Singapore, I think we have looked at ETS, emission trading scheme versus carbon tax. So the government has decided that we should go the carbon tax approach. And starting from 2019 to 2023, there will be a tax imposed of 5 Singapore dollars for a ton of CO2 emission. And beyond 2023, it could increase to a level of $10 to $15 per ton of carbon dioxide, right? If I recall correctly. So that's actually in place now. But from a bottom-up approach, I do sense that there is a very strong push from bottom-ups as well. Singapore is a home of many regional MNC headquarters. So, for example, Apple, they have gone out, say they are RE100, and Apple have, I think they have deliberately purchased racks to offset their energy consumption arising from their operations in Singapore. There are also discussion by companies on how they could also be more efficient in taking carbon off their supply chain. And that created sort of now a conversation that's driving whether do we need for a REX or a carbon market in Singapore that would support a voluntary contribution to this cost, right? So there's a combination of top down and bottom up. So over to you, Hang Sin.
Business-wise, I think it's extremely encouraging for new business owner or current existing business to actually pay attention to this whole conversation of the carbon market, because I think the carbon market conversation has been long way back, but taking it into action where you have countries having different level of policies or different kinds of policies to run the conversation. And Singapore has always been seen as one of the top leading countries in many aspects. And of course, when it comes to this whole green initiative, the top down or bottoms up, it just has to synergize to also again share and show with the other rest of the country. And of course, also, Singapore is very different from Thailand, from Myanmar, from Indonesia. You guys don't really have a lot of agriculture conversation, but you do have other challenges to look into. And I very much like to have also Kun Chestada from TGO, because these guys run a very big conversation on Thailand greenhouse gas. And while he mentioned earlier about voluntary, I believe their pressure are not anything lesser. So Chestada, please.
Yeah, thank you very much. How Thailand tracking the issue on the carbon emission? Most of the policy in Thailand that we implement several measures based on the energy demand and energy transformation sector, especially in the energy demand is like Singapore. We have the Energy Conservation Act that mandatory for the factory and also the building to have to do the energy report, and they have to set up the reduction target that, and so that we try to encourage they to have the more challenge target to reduce the energy consumption, and also it contribute to greenhouse gas emission. And also we have the policy to increase the share of the renewable energy for electricity produced. And so we have the measure for the solar rooftop and some of the wind turbine installed in the coast of Thailand in the southern, and also on the mountain in the northeast of Thailand. And we also have the measure on the waste to energy. Especially we have the national agenda for the waste management. We also have the big problem about the waste that come to the landfill. So this agenda, we would like to stop the landfill that we can avoid the emission from the methane emission from the fermentation of the municipal waste. So I think in from now to 3 or 5 years, we will have waste power plant on the operation in Thailand in several places. And for that is from the top down, from the policy program. But for the voluntary program that TGO try to initiate the carbon market mechanism based on our experience on the CDM, we set up the Thailand Voluntary Emission Reduction Program that we call TVER. That is to simplify the complication of the CDM to be the domestic market. Right now, we have about 100 projects in Thailand to produce the carbon credit, and we can sell domestically to, especially to the financial institute in Thailand. They support on the buy the credit for offset on their own carbon footprint to offset their carbon footprint. And we also looking for the future, so we try to support the provincial level for them to have their own plan based on their context and based on their ability to track all the emission in the provincial level. Thank you very much. Back to you.
Again, every new country every country sharing, the rest of the country kind of like benefited as well, because you start to learn about what the rest of the countries are actually doing. And on the conversation on carbon credit, or rather the carbon trading, where all countries are very much going on a voluntary basis. I'm not sure if any one of you could actually say or tell or discuss why is there a reason of countries going on voluntary when we are all screaming about climate change and climate issues? What exactly, sorry, plenary speakers, this is out of the question, but I'm just curious as what is not working, or why every country is screaming about this whole climate issue, and yet countries are not enforcing and making it a voluntary measure. Can anyone or anybody want to volunteer on this question? Yes, Jessica, thank you so much. I need you to unmute.
Okay.
Yes.
Sorry, I have a problem with my mouse. Okay. In Thailand, we have the agenda to shift up from the voluntary program to be the mandatory. That we wait for the cabinet and the parliament will approve the climate change act. So after we have the act, we can fought for the factory and anyone who make the big emission to have the mandatory to reduce the greenhouse gas, or they have to control their emission. Right now, we are on the process that to make the stakeholder in our country to have ready to be fed to the mandatory program. That's why we start on the voluntary and so on. Surely we will shift our work to the mandatory in the finally. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Jessica. Any other country volunteers who would like to touch on this subject as to why countries are going on voluntary when there is this whole screaming activities, that talks about the climate needs to pay attention. I mean, we need to pay attention to this whole conversation. Any input?
Yeah, I mean, this is just more from my
yes,
personal.
may I, give my thought about it?
Oh, go ahead. Yeah.
Yes, you first.
Oh, okay. Thanks. So this is more of my personal opinion as well. I think that's a really good question raised by Ms. Oxen as well. So I guess for us, in the current state of the situation, the incentive, like if you think of the carrot and stick model, I think we are at a stage where we need to do a lot more incentivizing than penalizing, and really to encourage people to be more, we are more at the awareness raising stage as well. And there's also a lot of reform that needs to be done inside the country as well. So even starting with the businesses, we're even at a stage where we need to have a lot more innovators and SMEs, let alone green SMEs. So in that sense, like the first step has just really needing to be just more encouraging SMEs first, and then having these more of the different guidelines and the measurement and monitoring metrics to be accompanied later. So we're more at the level of stage 1 as well. And then the other challenges that I could also imagine is, like I previously mentioned for Myanmar, the greenhouse gas emission. The main source of problem is actually not from the industry side yet. It's more from the rural communities and the farming communities. Most of the transports within the country, it's to transport the crops that is produced to China and to Thailand as well. So most of the issue has just been with the rural vulnerable communities, and to be put in more of the mandatory measures onto these communities is there's still a lot of challenges to implement such work as well. So so currently we're more at the stage of awareness raising. In that sense, we're more encouraging more of the voluntary measures, and then to really incentivize the green SMEs and green innovators to really focus on these issues.
Okay, thanks, Lynn. Eddie, would you like to share on this?
Yes, I think in that case, my country has doing it very cautiously. We start with preparing regulations. You know, if we are talking about forest fire, for instance, regulation has stipulated that if you create a forest fire, you will be punished either administratively or even treated as criminals. And in some cases, there is a threat of anti-corruption law to be implemented in a certain case. But this already shows some good results. We have now many region has set up all the necessary structures, the necessary sources for controlling watching the situation, and calls for a stronger effort, like flying helicopters to the forest fire area. But this progress is not that much happening in energy sector. This is because energy sector has just completed one of these main tasks on accessibility. Hopefully this year we can announce that 100% of ratio electrification will be achieved in Indonesia, and the government is very much doing their best to control the tariff and to be able to meet the affordability. But I think we see carbon emission not only from the point of view that it is some effort of breaking the law, but also that we see that this can be traded. And I think when rather facing people with sticks, I think government is trying to also establish the carrot to speed up the process. And since 2017, there are several regulations which allow carbon emission surface as a traded trade surfaces, you see. And we will see soon that the growth of this industry, where carbon trading will be something which easily traded. Even probably the creation of carbon market trading might, in my opinion, could surpass the electricity market situation. As you might know, Indonesia is still currently in a regulated electricity sector, and therefore the emergence of carbon trading mechanisms, which hopefully will come soon as well. And since the foundation has been laid down, and also another development is that now we have a special body which regulates the fund for environmental protection, which currently has been set up in order to also look for possibilities of funding from developed countries. So I see that the government is very wise in doing this approach, not merely just to make it mandatory, but slowly, when there is an option for whoever participate in economic activities to mitigate the risk, then probably that will be the time when enforcing the law could be done more stringent. That's my opinion.
Ivy, since you mentioned about the incentive and also a conversation that you touched on energy funds, green funds, is that something that Indonesia is establishing or building? Because you also mentioned about to explore from developed countries. So can you give a little bit of clarity from this angle?
Yes, by not long ago, maybe months ago, government announced the creation of BPDLH, which is, if I translate, this is a department or entity that controlling the environment fund. This will be under the Ministry of Environment and Forests, and I think the first fruit that they got is, as you might know, the Norwegian government has pledged to help us to maybe compensate us on the development of forest rehabilitation of the amount of hundreds of $1 million, and those funds and maybe there's also another covenant goes with it, will be taken care by this new body. And we have a high hope that this new body will be able to also provide funding for the development of renewables activities in Indonesia. Besides, the new renewable energy law hopefully will be issued end of this year. And if I'm not mistaken, in that law, there will be also some carbon tax stipulated in that. So those are the sorts of fundings that may require to speed up implementation of carbon mechanisms.
Okay, thank you so much, Pak Edi. Thank you for sharing and the openness to tell us more about what Indonesia is doing. Is there any other speakers who would like to address on this conversation as why the countries are not enforcing, or everyone is just going on a voluntary basis? Is there anybody else who want to share? Yes. Okay. Jawa, anything from you?
Yeah. So I think in Singapore case, we have gone down the tax, carbon tax, $5 on every ton of CO2 emission. And one of the largest contributor to that emission is the energy sector, the power generation plant. As you can imagine, that tax will eventually be translated down to the consumer who are paying for the energy for their consumption. So I guess in a sense, it is sending a signal to consumer to review their energy consumption behavior and to find ways to conserve their energy usage. And so it's I guess when you look around the world, countries have sort of veered between two paths. One is tax route, a carbon pricing, carbon tax as a form of carbon pricing signaling. And other countries will have some kind of ETS scheme. I think companies will be allocated allowances and then perhaps their allowances across. So I guess in Singapore case is a tax mechanism. In Europe, there's a very established ETS market, ETS scheme. I think China as well, and California. I think these are the more mature ETS markets, if we can say that.
Okay. And you know, probably moving forward, since we're on this whole conversation on country selection, on whether it is going to be mandatory or voluntary, you know, like how can companies actually get involved and so that, you know, they don't need to face a penalty, or you know, they can actually, like, how do they know how they can participate, and how do they know what they have done is actually aligning to what the country wants? So when some of the countries have expressed about monitoring, is there like a tracking system that you get to see how the company is being behaved, right, or disciplined in terms of their usage? So is there, like, I mean, I hear of like smart metering. So are these the kind of technology that some of you are already in deployment? So I'd like to open the floor to the speakers. Is there any action on smart metering being deployed across the entire country of yours, or you're looking at this area? But
smart metering has been in the program in PLN since the last 2 years, maybe more, 3 years. Yeah, and they have done some pilot project, and they tried several business scheme which may come with it, aside of, because the cost of installing smart meter for 76 million customers will be way beyond the financing capability of PLN currently. So they are looking for ways on how to create cooperation with private investors without sacrificing the need for interoperability and the centralized data center that they will require in order they can implement analytic as well as artificial intelligence technique to create a new revenue stream out of this information. So yes, indeed, PLN through their communication subsidiary, Icon Plus, has done several projects, and I believe they will come with a breakthrough several weeks even from now, and hopefully the project can be implemented soon. We have done at PGCI focus group discussing this, inviting several world utilities which has implement this approach, and we learn from them on how to speed up the smart metering project.
Okay, all right. And any other takers for this conversation? I think moving forward, we have this whole very critical conversation where technology, are advancing, and do any of your organization actually thinks about blockchain or things about AI? In terms of looking at it using the conversation or using the technology of blockchain and AI to actually best fit to serve this whole conversation in response to climate change. And of course, with the deployment of such technology, high tech, what kind of impact does it offer? So I have to start off with you because you are very much into this conversation of carbon credit, carbon trading, carbon footprint, carbon emission, and then now we talk about blockchain. I remember, some time back, where we had this whole conversation. Yeah. So can I hear? Can you share a little bit from this angle?
Yeah. So I think DLT, or distributed ledger technology, or blockchain, is a very promising technology in my view when it comes to fighting climate change and helping the environment. So what are the potential areas that we could potentially see technology like blockchain playing in this space? I guess a very clear candidate would be a supply chain, for example. So when the goods from the production of a product to the shelf, what is involved, the change of hands, can it be recorded in a blockchain so that when the consumer make a choice to purchase, they know what is the carbon footprint contributed to this entire chain. So a very clear example would be, so if I buy a carrot from the supermarket, I can choose a carrot from a neighboring country like Malaysia, or a carrot that comes from China, which would have a higher footprint, right? So as a consumer, if the blockchain is there to record and to timestamp or carbon stamp the product, it will lead to a more conscious effort from the consumer to signal their demand, where the demand should come from. Other potential application of blockchain could be in terms of, say, carbon credits or RECs to register the product, so that we can trust the certificate we're buying, and there's no double dipping, and we are paying for a good product, and that can always be recorded in a smart contract form. But is blockchain the only answer? I would say no. Blockchain is not the only answer. In fact, blockchain has to be combined with other technologies such as IoT, Internet of Things, and big data analytics in order for blockchain to work. Because a blockchain is only as good as what is the data that is inside the network. But the source of the data, the ingestion of data, is it good quality data? You need to have some kind of technology to help ensure that. So I'll give you an example. The example I can think of is solar panel and RECs, right? If I'm a buyer on a blockchain looking for RECs to offset my electricity consumption, I want to be sure that the RECs I'm buying is of good, authentic, it can be trusted. And so what this entails is, before the REC is presented in the blockchain for trade, there has to be some kind of mechanism or automated IoT, say a smart meter, to ingest the solar panel electricity that is sent to the grid, that data, the electricity meter data, into the blockchain. so that we know 1 megawatt of RECs equal 1 megawatt of electricity that's actually injected into the grid by the device or smart meter. And how big data comes into play is, of course, smart meter could be tempo, right? Then I would demand for a third-party verification. And that's when the solar farm that produces a REC, we could overlay it with big data analytics of the weather data, right? Whether the sun is shining over the area that the solar panel is, the solar farm is sitting on, right? And that irradiance data could then verify that yes, the panel is producing energy as it should be, right? So I see the combination of many technologies to come together in symphony to make this entire system to work. Yeah, over to you.
Very interesting, and it's also good learning for many who have yet started on the conversation on blockchain, AI, and now that Sewa actually throw in more than just the full term of blockchain, AI, he throw in IoT, he throw in big data, he talks about analytics, he talks about tracing and tracking. So, Chipsadaka, so like for you probably, since you have this portfolio of IT and you're looking and working with Thailand Greenhouse Gas, this whole conversation in terms of how TGO is actually looking to deploy the whole blockchain conversation, can you share more with us in terms of like where do you see best fit for TGO and beyond the TGO conversation for ministry, energy, for rest of the big corporates in Thailand? How can they leverage on this technology advancement?
Thank you very much. I'm not sure that I can share about the blockchain because we are on the preparation stage that to use the blockchain to support our RGC system. That I am design the RGC system as a trading platform backbone to support our voluntary program. But right now it's just only one standalone system that the user can connect through the internet and making the transfer and making the trading on that. We prepare the use of blockchain because we have one of the program with the Japanese government that called the JCM. In the JCM, the Japanese government mentioned that we divide the credit that we earn from the project inside Thailand. We divided the credit 50-50, and then the 50% of the credit issue in the TGO registry system, and the rest issue on the Japanese government registry system. So because both of the system that did not connecting together, that we try looking for the possibility to use the technology such as blockchain to connect between the registry between the country in case of the JCM, or maybe in case of the other cooperation that we TGO that finding the cooperation with to other scheme, especially in Europe. And in the case of the AI, I have some case that we use for about the land, the greenhouse gas emission from the land use. I will share the slide for you to looking about that. We prepare about the using of the AI. Okay. We start from that. We have the greenhouse gas estimation from the land use, that we estimate of the carbon stock change from the land use and the land use of the change in the transition period of time. Regarding to the IPC guideline, they divide the land use change, the land use in any area to the 6 category: forest land, crop land, gas land, wetland settlement and the outer land. So the change of the land use type that it lead to the carbon stock, or we lost the carbon to be the emission. That is the metric show that the type of the land that change from type to type, and you can see the forest still be the forest, or maybe the forest it have to change to be the cropland. In the case of Thailand, okay, that we use the satellite image to determine what type of the land cover. That normally, and on the left, your left hand in the slide, you can see the digital number that we try to determine with what type the land cover to be the cropland or the forest area. So it is the really burden to us, that because we right now Thailand can use this technique to determine the land use change emission in the interval of the 5-year interval. So if we have to report the emission in the every year, so that it means we have to have the better tool to determine what is the change between the land. So that it's just not only the digital number from the satellite. We have to use the pattern, the texture of the land use cover, and also we maybe develop the deep neural network for the determine of the type of the land cover. In this slide, I think you can see the change of the land. It come from the 2001. Okay, this is the 2001. And then 2010, that is the intrusion of the cropland. You will see the texture of the paddy field on the slope land, like a step, and so this is the change in the northern part of Thailand. And this is the result that you can see we try to set up the program to reforestation from the intrusion of the change of the forest land to be the cropland, and we reforestation on the abundant land, and then this is some kind of the emission and sequestration that we tracking and monitor of the change of the land use in our country. If we have the better tools such as the AI, and we can monitor that it more frequently, I hope it's every year, annually based, and we can have the set up the mutual, or maybe to track down and to have the mutual to do something about the land use area, that we can manage the land, manage the disaster, and also manage the impact from the climate change. And if we have we can bring the AI, we can save time and cost effective, and we can detect the change of the location geographically, and we have the more perhaps they can produce more accurate, because right now we have to use the experts, one of the experts to determine what type of the land cover, and we also that I hope that this tool can help the mapping and decision making to for the land use management. Thank you very much.
Okay, so looks like the conversation is very much that technology is needed, but where to start? And of course, the conversation in terms of like not just technology, but also Jessica probably have to justify the budget as when it comes to buying of technology or investing in technology. And that actually spurred my thoughts about, in across ASEAN, the 10 countries, what could ASEAN CIO do in terms of supporting the country needs. So these will be some of the conversation that we will have to follow through after this whole live chat. But Eddie, do you want to share anything? Dina?
Yes, I'd like to share what we in Smart Grid Initiative Indonesia has think for several months now, and let's start with the artificial intelligence in energy sector. We found that Indonesia, with a vast area, will require a lot of expertise in this part. We will start with what we have in Sulawesi, for instance. We have the 73 times 2 megawatt wind power, the first of its kind in Indonesia, and those operation of those wind farms has created some adverse impact in our grid, and we need to improve our forecasts. And for doing that, we need artificial intelligence knowledge, and for the time being, we are working on that. Another example of utilization of artificial intelligence will be for operation and maintenance platform for our power generations. We currently are using both predicts as well as some Siemens product on intelligence platform to be able to give prediction and hopefully prescription on how we will maintain our equipments. In operation, by introducing phaser measurement units and the network, we are aiming to be able to control the stability of heavily loaded system like Jawa Bali system, which to prevent blackout from happening like what happened in August the 4th last year. And we know that we need this technology to improve our controllability. Artificial intelligence also being prepared in advance of introduction of our implementation of smart meters, because we will need to be able to do analytics and machine learning on lake of data that will be obtained from our smart meter in the near future. We see that blockchain, with the promise of security, decentralization, will have its place rather slowly in our system, because currently our energy system, electricity system are centralized, monopolistic and regulated, and therefore we need to look at the breakthrough and as when this monolith structure will face this challenge. And the answer will come very soon with the increasing penetration of rooftop, for instance, which will require more of regional as well as local controlling mechanism to be able to control the voltage, frequency, flickers, etc. And those will also give a way for development of communal utility, peer-to-peer trading as well. And we will see in the near future that this challenge will happen, and PLN has now preparing themselves to see the forthcoming challenge. Blockchain, the way I see it, can have four possible utilization. First, on carbon trading, which also being introduced by PLN, and as stated by other speakers, we will need to ensure numbers and transaction into smart contract can be monitored precisely, and therefore blockchain will be the right answer for that. And secondly, in our island electrification As you might know, Indonesia consists of 17,000 islands, sorry, and in which maybe 10%, 1,700 is inhabited, and currently electricity services can only reach half of them. And we are doing some works on to develop a so-called off-grid system with a smart grid, with a microgrid and all the novel approach on how to create renewable-based economic development in such an island, and we need all the technology that we can to jumpstart this development. So we have pilot projects on the use of DC distribution system, with some area with a battery-based distribution system, and with energy measurement limiter rather than a current or voltage limiter, as well as another kind of method to ensure that customers will pay the services on time. Another possibilities that blockchain may be utilized, of course, is on green certificate trading. We have started it in our smart grid initiative with a small project, so-called Mawar project, and we try to implement the blockchain for 5-6 customers for the time being, just to test how does this operates, and as a proof of concept that it can be launched into a bigger scale later. Thank you.
So I mean, I didn't know that it's like we're already at 25, like 3:30 already, and there are so many interesting questions that are coming in to me, but I just have to kind of like ask one last question to all the plenary, and then I hope that after this live chat, there are work to be done collectively. Today, I'm going to use the word collectively in terms of working together to address this whole conversation. So, moving forward, this very last question, in your opinion, my dear plenary speakers, how can ASEAN and her people strengthen collaboration to support a green innovation ecosystem? So I will start with Dina, because Dina, this is very vital, because you have like 7-8 initiatives that you're driving in Brunei. That definitely gonna have a lot of things that we all can learn from you.
Yeah, thanks, Pim. So for Brunei, so I had the privilege of handling international affairs before taking up the role as the lead for the Secretariat. So I deal a lot with ASEAN sectoral bodies. So from that angle, I see that there's actually a lot of opportunities that we leverage on the existing official platform in ASEAN. I know that climate change, there's a sectoral body on climate change, we have a sectoral body on energy, and I happen to I used to sit in the ASEAN energy sector, and now the climate change energy sector. And there's a lot of discussion and there's a lot of momentum at the government level within these official sectoral bodies in ASEAN, just talking about, all these things, climate action. Even in the energy sector, they're not talking about climate mitigation. So, but perhaps we can just enhance it to have more, to enhance the cohesiveness with the industry, So I think that's where the link is, so that, you know, not just the discussion and the conversation is at a government level, you know, within ASEAN sectoral bodies, but rather we can have more engagement with the industry side in ASEAN. So I think that's very crucial. And I think also that we can also leverage on ASEAN partnership with our dialogue partners, with our international organizations. So there's a lot of opportunities, but we just have to link it better, I think. Yeah.
Okay. So what I'm hearing from you is leverage on the connections and also the existing network and infrastructure, network and organization to work together, right?
Yes, correct.
Okay,
Yeah,
excellent.
because it's already there. It is a matter of enhancing it and strengthening it. Yeah.
Okay. I mean, sometimes when I hear about like enhancing it, let's work together, you know, the very key challenges, all right, that I've also shared with both my president and vice president is that after all the talk, we now have to take action. And after we take the action, we then share and report to all the respective countries who are interested in this whole initiative that we're driving. So rest assured that, you know, after the live chat, I'm going to be knocking on each of your doors. Okay,
yeah,
so
because, also one more thing, I think it's also important to acknowledge that different ASEAN member states have different starting point. Like for Brunei, you know, we only just rolled out, literally we just rolled out our policy, so we're a bit behind compared to the rest of ASEAN member states. So it's also crucial to know that, you know, we may not be equipped. So there's a lot of gap in terms of capacity and resources as well. So I think that's where ASEAN can come together and, you know, exchanges and technical assistance. I think that's where we can come in together as ASEAN.
okay. I mean, this is a good reminder. The day that we started ASEAN CIO Association probably a decade ago, Secretariat has always reminded us that, you know, 10 member states are unique, special, and each have their own characters and each are at their own development stage. So these are reminders that, you know, we always remember in terms of how we work with a country. We will never take one country to try to fit into another or one law to apply to the other. With all due respect, we also appreciate the culture respectively to each unique country. So over to you, Pak Eddie, you know, on this conversation of working together, all right, building and strengthening collaboration for a support of green innovation ecosystem. How can we do this, you know, together? Pak Eddie, microphone.
Okay. What I have in mind now is that we need a collaboration on promoting innovations, and I think we need to do it regularly or more often than once a year. For instance, you know, it's just not sufficient to do that. We need to be more, maybe every 3 months, every 6 months, do some kind of innovations,
challenge.
Innovation event to promote innovation. And one other thing is we need to do it more regularly and with a lot of publicity, because there are a lot of innovative young men over there which can easily be excited by news that other people, other countries have reached a certain innovation stage. And I think competition in innovation is a must. Is better than current. Yeah.
Okay, nice. In fact, it just hit on the conversation where we in ASEAN CIO Association that we are driving this whole conversation for green communities, green initiative, working with the respective countries, the top 50 emitters first start, the top 15, and we brainstorm with the respective emitters and see what are the things to be done. but how do we do it, right? We're going to explore on this whole conversation for open innovation platform that we would also be putting it in as part of the program. Remember, right from the start, I mentioned about the 9 months program. All right, so these initiatives, rest assured that we're going to come and knock on your door, Pak Eddie and Dina, and also the rest of the countries that happen not to be on this call, because 5 is already very helpful. So
you don't need to knock my door. You just inform Pak Hamam, your vice chairman, because he's the one who has the responsibility in this republic.
Okay, I will knock on his door first.
Well. Yeah.
Okay, I will call upon him first before I call upon you. Okay, Nin, how about yourself? Your side?
Yeah. So to be frank, Myanmar is still catching up to the world and to our neighboring countries in terms of technology advancements and innovation as well. And then our infrastructure is still lagging behind. So just 6 years ago, a SIM card used to cost about $3,000. And now a sudden drop from $2,000 to $1 has really leapfrogged us in certain areas such as smartphone usage and information technology. But then as a country, we still need more development in the infrastructure and systemic changes to support innovation and technology usage like AI and blockchain for sure. And there's a few organizations and firms that are really trying to bring in new innovations and pushing it forward, but we need more support as well. For example, we just like even for blockchain and AI, we need to have more awareness within the country. We don't really have that many people inside the country who actually know what blockchain it is. And just last year, just a few months ago, we just have the first ever blockchain roundtable in Myanmar, and only a few people attended it. So we cannot just have these people really knowing that if we really want to champion new technology as well. I mean, there's been a few exciting development as well. Like for example, like even from financial regulations, like our central bank allowed used to warn against cryptocurrencies, but then just last year it officially endorsed the use of blockchain in the national payment system, using improving the collaboration between a Thai bank and a Myanmar bank as well. So there's been some development, but then we need to do more than that, and it also. And there's also a lot of changes that we need to do in terms of the capacity building as well, especially from the youth side, because we need to change the curriculum, even the STEM curriculum, just so that we prepare the next generations to be more aware of technology as well. And we really need support in that, mainly because, again, like up until 6 years ago, the way that we think about technology is totally different from how it used to be. But within these last while we are playing the catch-up within the last years, the technology in the rest of the world has jumped to another level. So there's still a lot of catch-up that we need to do, but it's really promising to see the tide of our new green tech startups inside the country as well. For them, there's a lot of support needed with funds, the green funds, impact investors, like to be connected with the impact investors, and how, especially the one who really support these green climate change and green initiatives. There's been a few efforts by climate finance, from especially the climate finance workshop series from Asia Venture Philanthropy Network, AVPN, and then Practitioner Labs on raising the awareness of climate change among the impact investor. But we need to do more than that, and Myanmar needs to participate more, because oftentimes what I realize is that even when I go to these events, like there's only one person from Myanmar to really even knowing these events exist, like these type of collaboration exist. So I think even from our side, there's a lot of effort that we need to do. We need to be more proactive in asking for help and support, and really reaching out to the rest of the community.
Okay, thank you very, very, very much. And again, I really appreciate, as young generation, you're already pretty knowledgeable in terms of the work that you're doing for Myanmar. And of course, It's a constant learn from everyone when we get onto the live chat, and also each of you have the context of each other. And should you, after this live chat, I think it is highly encouraged that you get to exchange your notes with the rest of the people in this live chat room. Yeah, Dina is very experienced. So if you say Myanmar is still, learning and picking things up, you have also Pak Eddie, you have Jowa, and you have Chestnut. So you're not alone. You have all of us. Okay, so before I get to Jowa, I'd like to throw this over to Chestnut first in terms of the conversation that we're having right now, which is the last conversation, as in like how can ASEAN and the people strengthen collaboration in your conversation, all right, support this whole green innovation ecosystems. That, your microphone.
Okay. Hello.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. It did like the difficult question for the IT people like me. Okay, I think we in ASEAN we share some condition, we share some socio economy, something like we share. We are this not much different. So I think we can learn together, like learn from each other, and we can work together. That I think it's okay that in my point of view, we can share my experience or learn from your experience that can improve. Thank you very much.
No, thank you for making an effort to already volunteer to be a part of it. Anything comes to technology, we're gonna just knock on your door. All right, since you're the IT guy.
Yes, thank you.
Jowa, you're my guru for this conversation.
I hope I don't disappoint you. It's hard to be the last speaker because almost everything has been covered by the speakers before me, and I do agree with all they said, all that they have shared with us. I guess if we look at based on the current policy and by year 2030, research has shown that in order to reach the 1.5 degree pathway, we need to further reduce by 35 gigaton of gas or emission. And out of this 35, 25 gigaton can be reduced by means of technology. Say if we use more efficient generation technology for electricity, example. But there still lies, I think, about 7 gigaton that can only be reduced by a nature-based solution, right? And I do think that 7 gigaton, ASEAN as a region has the potential to supply that solution. The demand for offsets certainly will, carbon offsets, carbon credits will increase by tenfold in the next 10 years, I think. And as a region, it will be useful if we could connect the project owners, beyond what the government has been doing, right, as a private sector or below that, connect project owners to emitters, to the financing institution, the financial institutions, or even consumers, right? So that projects can be more bankable. And if we could have that platform, I think we could be onto something bigger and better. Thanks.
Okay. Thank you, Jowa. And I think you hit on again another one very important conversation: project being bankable. All right, and that also opens a whole opportunity and conversation on funding, green funds. All right, or even like the climate action fund. So in the conversation of ASEAN CIO Association, we've been brainstorming on driving this whole green initiative to enroll, instead of government, to enroll companies. You hit on also the point that while the government are doing their work, all right, on the ground, the companies, the people needs to do something. Instead of saying that climate change, the government is the one that's responsible. Actually, every single one of us are fully accountable in terms of our action to do some work. So with that said, I actually brainstormed with my team to come up with this whole conversation that we actually arrowed Jawa to lead this whole conversation on ASEAN Green Communities, ASEAN Green Initiatives. And again, I wanted to emphasize that these take time and effort to enroll countries into action, where we identify the top 50 emitters of the country, and we have a program that runs 9 months. And this program is not just talking about, okay, let's have a rah-rah for 5 days, 3 days, and that's it. No, it's an action program where there will be measurement, there will be monitoring, there will be also updates, so that at the end of the 9 months, when the countries are participating, we then share the report. When the first round of pilot is successful, we then get on to the round 2, the round 3, the round 4, and so on and so forth. So people have told me, or many people has reminded me that, Hong-Sen, there are so many big organizations doing something, but why is it not working? Is it so easy? I said, nothing is easy. So when we intended to do this, we were not thinking about an easy path. We know it's tough, but with the intention, with the commitment, and with the people wanting to save this planet, all right, we have definitely way to work. Okay, so I've overshot on 15 or 20 minutes or 30 minutes. So I'd like to thank everybody who spent the time with us to learn about what we intend to do. And of course, particularly to all the plenary contributors, rest assured that ASEAN CIO Association will be in very close touch with you in terms of the follow-up action. And also, as I mentioned, this is actually our last live chat. And moving forward, we are looking to bring on individual focused people and subjects instead of just over discussion, because we realize that the 1.5 hour, the 2 hours is so insufficient. So we will get into very specific subjects. We may not do it online like this publicly, but we will have what we call closed session before we bring on the results after this whole session. So again, thank you very much. And, I leave you all off with this whole conversation that, keeping a green focus takes passion and takes us to make a commitment to go long haul for now instead of just talking about the future. So I'm very mindful about how, possibly laymen can actually get involved in the conversation, and how much do one commit to do to make a whole lot of a difference to the vital conversation of one planet, one present, instead of one future. So with deep gratitude and thank you again to all. We'll see you all soon and near time. Thank you very much to all. Eddie and Min, Dina, Jessica, and Silva. I'll catch up with you all again. Thank you and have a good evening.